Which leads us to the second principle, which is projecting a strong, clear identity grounded in customer benefits. What we find way too often is organizations focus on what they want to talk about rather than what customers really are interested in doing. So they talk about their brand has certain features. It's made from certain ingredients. It will go certain RPMs per minute or whatever it might be, rather than understanding what are the desired outcomes that a brand wants to achieve. One of the best ways of communicating this was said a number of years ago by Ted Levitt, who, when we talk about, who explained a principle by combining brand features and customer needs. On one hand, we have the brand's features on the left-hand side, which is the physical makeup of it, the properties that it has, the qualities and the associations. So those are the branded features. On the far side, you have customer needs, what they want to do, whether it's a physical need, they need a piece of equipment, they have emotional needs, they have commercial needs, they have to get a task accomplished. Benefits occur when a brand feature meets a customer need, and this is what I thought this was going to come a slide earlier. Ted Levitt, who was a well-known marketing consultant and professor in the 50s and 60s, had a wonderful way of explaining this whole thing, this whole phenomenon that I've been trying to get across is always remember, people don't want a quarter-inch drill. They want a quarter-inch hole. So the hole is the outcome the customer is seeking, and the drill is just a means of getting there. So always keep that in mind. Keep the outcome in mind, because that really is the foundation for understanding the benefits that your brand can portray to your customers. And when we talk about brand benefits, we actually break them down into 3 levels, kind of a hierarchy of functional, being what a brand does, some internal and emotional benefits, how it makes customers feel, how it makes the customer feel, and then some other higher level and more abstract, external or symbolic benefits that have some social and self-expressive aspects to it. I'm going to explain each one of these a little briefly. We can look at these as a pyramid. They actually are additive. You don't do one rather than the other. You want, as you're building your communication, you build up from this. A brand has to have the goods to begin with. So it has to have good, solid, functional benefits as the basis for what it's doing, because no brand is going to succeed in the long run unless it actually functions the way customers want. And then we build in these other benefits over a period of time, and that's the role of communication to do that. So there we go. It wasn't clicking. So functional benefits, as we said, are the foundation of all of this. This is when we talk about having a focus on product features, performance, ingredients, and so forth. This would be the technical specs, and everybody's got to have a spec sheet somewhere in their literature that talks about the feeds and speeds and the product attributes, or the design elements and what's gone into it. We can even think of brands that focus largely on this. For example, Head and Shoulders, because it's the dandruff shampoo, makes a very big deal out of its functional benefits. But they also communicate beyond that how happy or you're more socially acceptable when you've got shiny, clean hair, which gets us to the next level, which are the higher level internal or emotional benefits. Now, sometimes when we talk about that in the B2B arena, people get a little uncomfortable thinking that we're trying to sell a business-to-business brand or a business service or an educational service in the same way that P&G would sell a dandruff shampoo or toothpaste or so forth. No, these are absolutely just as important in a B2B or a commercial environment, but the emotions that are triggered are a little bit different. So this is where we want to focus on engendering a sense of trust or a sense of accomplishment, understanding what our customer is trying to accomplish and how our brand or our service is going to help them fulfill their accomplishment. It might offset fear, fear of failure, fear of breakdowns, fear of work stoppages, or so forth. So dealing with the fear that helps them feel they are more in command of their business or in command of the situation, helping them be very smart because they're avoiding problems, that there's other advantages, and then you get into some that have very high level aspirational claims, and we'll get into some later on, but building a better future, helping make the world cleaner because of the turbines or the engines or the water filtration devices and so forth, those kinds of things that are being used. And as we go on, I've got some clear examples of some of these kinds of things. But I think that helps you understand the relationship between those. And then on the upper level, on the highest level, are these external and symbolic benefits. Again, this is something somewhat more associated with consumer brands, particularly luxury brands, particularly brands that are used to show that you might wear as a badge. So you might drive a certain kind of car, or you might wear a Timberland jacket to show that you're very outdoorsy and you appreciate the great outdoors, or you might wear a Rolex watch to show that you're accomplished and have made money, or whatever. There's a lot of kind of psychology that goes into the usage of luxury brands. It's kind of not what we're talking about here. There is a degree of this that actually is important in the B2B sector, and it really becomes important when we talk about brand alliances, when you are working with other organizations that people have some perception of, whether you're working with a university, whether you're working with MEP, whether you are representing some organization in your as you go to market. So these kinds of associations that are publicly seen by your customers can be an important part, and they then inform and influence the kind of associations that people will have of you. I used an example many slides ago about the preferred contractor for Owens Corning. That's an example. So that's a case where that local contractor is trying to show something and perceives there is symbolic benefit in publicly displaying his association or her association with Owens Corning as a preferred contractor. A couple of points to be made in talking about this brand benefit pyramid. On one hand, when we talk about, as I said, too many people, too many brands focus only on this functional level, and that's because it's easy to do. They're very easy to define. They're easy to communicate. We go faster. We go so many RPMs per minute, or we have these kinds of courses to offer. We're expert in this topic, lean manufacturing, or whatever it might be. That's all well and good, but the real risk is that's very easy for other people to copy. Particularly when you're getting into any kind of technology, and the life cycle of any kind of technology is very short. Someone else can come come up with a product that is faster or less expensive or weighs less or is more durable, and if that's all you have to as a competitive advantage, it's a very weak foundation, and it's a very weak foundation for the brand. It's also very difficult to transfer some of that to other lines of business. If you want to expand your business, remember we talked about extension opportunities, and a brand that is very focused on its functional attributes has a very difficult time moving into other areas. To use a consumer example, because it's quick and easy, if you think of something like A1 steak sauce, it's a great product, it's a great brand, it's very narrowly focused on having a sauce that goes quite well with steak, but doesn't go with much of anything else. And it would be, actually they have tried to take the A1 to expand it into a broader line of sauces that might go with chicken or might go with Asian food or so forth, different flavorings, but still under the A1 name, and it has been very unsuccessful for them because of this narrow focus. On the other hand, brands that have that appeal to more abstract associations, it's harder to get there. It takes a lot more time. It takes a lot more investment over a longer period of time. But once you get there, it's much harder for anyone else to copy, and it is much easier to transfer those associations to other lines of business. Did somebody hear a beeping? Okay, I'm going to continue, but there is something that's beeping here. And I want to use an example here from the computer category. So we have down at the bottom a whole bunch of competitors in a tight race, kind of going back to first PCs and then laptops. They're all excellent, from all of them at one time or another were leaders in the field. They all make excellent equipment, but most of them have been very focused on their functional benefits and their attributes, and didn't really invest a whole lot in branding beyond that. The one really obvious outlier is Apple, that is, so unique in that how it took its basic original image of being, for the creative independent thinker, but managed to parlay that into first iPods and then iPhones, and now into, whatever, the world is their oyster. They could go into almost anything with an Apple name or an iName, watches and wearable devices and so forth. So they have really captured the essence of the top of that, which makes it much easier for them to extend the brand into other areas.